iScrappers, Tom from the iScrap app. Today is Wednesday, August 7th, 2019. We welcome everyone to our weekly live report that we try to do every Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're catching this after we do it live and you have questions, feel free to post those questions and either ourselves or one of your fellow scrappers will get you those answers as quickly as we can. Don't forget, if you become a supporter on our Patreon page, you'll be able to get 3 to 5 extra updates a week on different market news, faster prices, and it'll just give you a little more information about what's going on with the scrap metal market that you otherwise would be waiting week to week for our weekly reports. It's not exactly information that you can just find by Googling it, and that's why it's been one of the really cool features that we've seen a lot of people enjoying. So make sure you become a supporter on our Patreon page. Like I said, if you have any questions during our live feed, just ask them and we'll try to get those answers while we're going live. But let's talk about some of the things that have been going on in the last week. Yes, my attitude is chipper, but I try to be optimistic all the time. But over the last week, it's certainly been a very, very tough period, especially comparing to the last few years when we've seen some tough markets. Copper prices in the last 2.5 weeks or so has dropped about 24 cents a pound. Last week alone, with some of those large drops that we saw in the stock market, we saw the copper prices moving down 7 to 9 cents per day, about 2-3 days in a row. There were a couple of small rebounds, but overall this market is very, very tough. And the answer is why? Tariffs, you said it. So President Trump said that on September 1st that they'll be putting another round of tariffs in on the Chinese. And if because of that, well, we're going to see those markets going down again. With no tariff end in sight, or so it seems, it looks like this market is going to be very, very difficult going forward for the foreseeable future. We tried to ask a lot of people what their thoughts are, and a lot of them really don't have any solid ideas anymore. This is something that we haven't seen realistically ever, and because of that, we're watching these markets and trying to learn what's going to happen from day to day, week to week, or month to month. You know, you look at the G20 summit where both presidents said that they're going to continue to work with each other and we're not going to have any more tariffs going into effect. 5 weeks later, another round of tariffs goes into effect. When that round happened, no one expected it to happen last week. We saw the prices go down. We saw the worst week in the stock market in all of 2019, only to be followed on Monday by another round of stock market plummets. I think it was almost 900 points at one point, ended at like 780 plus points down in one day, about 1.5%, 2%. 3% at times. So we look at some of these things and we're on another one of those roller coasters, which we've had multiple times this year. Now, many people forget only a short 8.5 months ago, back in December of 2018, we saw large swings in the stock market. And this is when a lot of these talks were happening as well. Now, what we think is going to happen, especially in the next month or so, is not a lot of good things. There's going to be another round of trade negotiations in September, and we'll see how that's going to affect the copper prices. But if we've seen these reported prices as of recent, they've been nothing but down on the copper and aluminum side. We saw bare bright prices dropping to 182, 187, 199, 204, and as high as $2.25 a pound over the last week. On top of that, lower grades of copper wire have plummeted. Some grades 10, 15, 20 cents a pound for lower grades of computer wire that we've seen reported. Now, of course, all of these trade negotiations and tariff things could be erased with a tweet, an agreement, or some type of positive news, but we haven't heard anything as of late. Our opinion is that the Chinese are not only waiting for the 2020 election, they're in this digging their heels in for the long haul. Don't forget, the President Xi, he doesn't have to get reelected. It's an appointment for life. And because of that, he, in his mind, seems to have a little more power and control and will wait this thing out longer than the United States will. It seems like both parties are digging their heels in, and the scrapping community and the metals community is really getting hammered. We've seen those aluminum prices continue to fall. We've seen the copper prices continue to get hit. You know, we saw copper prices 50, 60 cents higher just a few short months ago, and here we are with no news to be found. Our original prediction in 2018 was that a deal would be done by 2019, around the middle of the year in June. Well, that G20 summit came and went, and we haven't seen anything happen. We've seen some trade talks, but nothing that has really materialized. We were looking at some of the reported prices on aluminum in the last week. Aluminum siding, 24 cents a pound, 26 cents a pound, 29 cents a pound. Highest price we saw was 34 cents a pound for loose siding and gutters. These are materials that should be much higher, 20 to 30% higher at minimum, but there's a couple of different factors that are going into play that are going to affect and continue to affect the scrap market and the scrap prices. A couple of things that we've talked about in the past, but it's been a while, so we'd like to revisit them. All the material that was getting exported overseas to China, Japan, Middle East, in different areas of the southern east region, all of these different places that were getting the material, they have to pay tariffs coming back into the country. So while you would say, well, why don't we keep more of the metal into the country? With those countries having to pay the tariffs and those companies having to pay the tariffs on their new metal products that are coming in, that's going to drive the prices lower because they're going to have to make up for the tariffs somewhere else. Well, what does that mean for material staying here in the U.S.? It's going to be much harder for that material to stay here in the U.S. It'll stay here, but the prices are not going to go up that much more. Why would U.S. manufacturers, U.S. producers, U.S. mills, U.S. furnaces pay more money for material that they don't have to? It's a simple supply and demand, and it's a simple mathematics scheme. If the market is dictating X, why would a U.S. company pay X plus Y? They won't. They're going to pay what the world market is doing, just kind of how it is. Compare it to gas. Just because the U.S. is producing more gas and more oil than ever, that doesn't mean that they're going to have their prices in a standalone market. Their prices on exporting and importing and all these things go into the larger economic scale, and that's where the oil prices come from. There's a reason that the London Metal Exchange exists. It's for different traders and companies to trade commodities. That's why everything gets into one big picture and goes from there. It's not like the classifieds. Oh, I have $10 of Apple stock and another guy has, $10 of Apple stock, and you can try to negotiate the price down. The price is dictated by the market as a whole when everything is grouped together. And that's why we've seen these ferrous prices really struggling over the last few months. Steel prices have finally started to show a rebound, and we've seen anywhere from $5 to $20 per ton increase over the last two or 3 weeks combined, leading into August and then starting August. But overall, these prices haven't really moved like we would think that they would. We've seen light iron and sheet iron and white good pricing $70 a ton, $55 a ton, and if you tune in on Saturday, you'll be able to see some more of the prices that we've seen listed. We've seen some heavier grades of steel finally seeing an uplift. Some unprepared materials saw unprepared number 115, 127. Highest price we saw was $172 a ton reported over the last week. So when you look at some of these prices, you say to yourself, what is going to happen moving forward? People over there at iScrap, what do you think is going to happen? And our opinion is not much for the rest of 2019. We've talked to many scrappers and many large scrap yards that are holding on to a lot of material with hopes that the copper market is going to go up another 50 cents to $1. Now, some people with deep pockets can afford to buy things cheap, gamble on them, and hope that these prices rise. But for the everyday person that's out there working their butt off to get these copper prices, their copper products prepared and ready to ship, it's going to be very difficult to just sit on 500-600 pounds of copper while you see money sitting in a garbage can that you can't use elsewhere. Now, many people have said maybe if we band together, we'll be able to get these commodity prices up, and that's not going to happen either. You look at some areas of the country like the Midwest, Detroit, Chicago area, where there's a heavy manufacturing segment. Well, those heavy manufacturers, such as automakers, are going to continue to produce large amounts of scrap. They're not going to hold it. They're not going to become a scrapyard and have a pile in their backyard, hoping, praying, waiting for the markets to go up. They're going to continue to move it because that's not how they make their money. but they need to move it out of the way, ship it out, and have new product come in so they can make their pieces, their cars, their equipment, whatever it is that they're making at their factories, and send it out to sell for a new product and new use. So the scrap that's coming out of that far outweighs a lot of the material that, the everyday scrapper that works their tush off is really going out there and saving. So banding together is never going to be a solution. We've seen it before, we'll see it again, but it's our opinion that as much as we save, it's never going to outweigh the manufacturing segment that's producing a massive amount of scrap in the US and in the world. Now, one metal that we have seen really jumping has been gold. Gold has hit $1,500 an ounce for the first time in a long time and is at 2019 highs. Now, many people are going to assume that the prices of electronic scrap is going to go up because the gold prices have gone up so aggressively, over $100 an ounce in the last month, but that isn't necessarily the case. When investors see problems in the market, they have fear, they always go to a safe haven, and that's traditionally been gold. For thousands of years, people have looked at gold as the base metal that they want to be able to store. That's why gold bars and mints, and you see the US Treasury has mountains of gold bars, and other current countries use it to kind of gauge their wealth. The gold standard, while it's no longer in play, that just shows you that the entire world has relied on gold for many years, as well as it's relied on silver, platinum, palladium, but specifically gold to really gauge the level of currencies and the dollar amounts. It's been very, very fun to see one market increasing, but a lot of it is because investors are putting money into gold because they're negating other things and they want it into a safer investment long term or even short term, as we don't know what's going on. So the prices on electronics such as motherboard scrap, memories, CPUs hasn't really increased, even though the gold market has jumped, especially when copper, aluminum, stainless prices have gone down over 2019, and those are all metals that go into those boards as well, and it's very, very difficult to find solid pricing in the electronics market, especially with large parts of Asia being shut down to having that material coming into their country. Make sure you become a supporter on our Patreon page. You'll continue to get updates like this during the week. Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're a little longer. We give you a couple of pieces of information and a couple of different market moving news so you know what's going on. If there's anything that we can help you with, make videos on, or grow with your scrap knowledge, let us know. We're constantly learning. We're working on more and more things. If you're looking to sell catalytic converters, you can always go to our sister company, rrcats.com. You'll be able to get some prices on there by texting them in or uploading them through the website. We have a question, Virginia?
Steve asked if catalytic converter markets are dropping.
No, Steve, great question. The catalytic converter market has been very strong. We've seen the palladium, platinum, and rhodium markets overall being steady. We've seen platinum around $850 an ounce, rhodium around $3,400 an ounce. And these markets have been very good. We always see people posting on the forums about their different cap prices, and different people say prices that they can pay or that they should get, or all these different things. Saying things and getting paid are two different things, but the catalytic converter market is probably at the strongest peak in the last 5 years, definitely, but overall it really is doing very well. Guys, this is Tom from the iScrap app. Any questions, please post them below. Any comments, please post them below. Continue to post your prices. Please become a supporter on our Patreon page, and until next week, I'll scrap you later.